Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 16, Text 19. Dharma uvacha kachid badre anamayam atmanaste vichagasi mlaya teshan mukena alakshaye bhavatim antaradhim Dure bandhum sochasi kanchanamba. Translation. Dharma in the form of a bull asked, Madam, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who was away in a distant place? Purport: the people of the world in this age of Kali are always full of anxieties. Everyone is diseased with some kind of ailment. From the very faces of people of this age, one can find out the index of the mind. Everyone feels the absence of his relative who is away from home. A particular symptom of the age of Kali is that no family is now blessed to live together. To earn a livelihood, the father lives in a place far away from the son, or the wife lives far away from the husband, and so on. These are sufferings. There are sufferings from internal diseases, separation from those near and dear, and anxieties for maintaining the status quo. These are but some important factors which make the people of this age always unhappy. Translation. Dharma in the form of a bull asked, Madam, why are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease, or are you thinking of some relative who was away in a distant place? This is a series of questions by Dharma in the form of the bull to Earth in the form of the cow. So we have seen that the cow was weeping, and the bull was questioning her. Of course, the bull already knew the answer, and we can say that even Parikshit knew the answer, but these questions by Dharma emphasize the terrible conditions which the earth is suffering due to the influence of Kali Yuga. There are many different questions asked here, and the bull is asking about the cow. Is it this? What, you get tears in your eyes because of this or because of that? Ultimately, all of them are true, because all the questions he asks are concerning the nature of Kali Yuga. Some, of course, are more important aspects of grief for the earth than others, but nevertheless, all are there. So all these questions are actually describing the conditions of this age, and these are a cause of grief for the cow and the earth. So the first question Dharma asks, are you sick? Yeah. Are you healthy or are you unhealthy? Why is your face so withered up and blackish in color? Somehow, is it external disease or is it internal disease? That's antaradim, internal disease. Or is it because you're lamenting for someone who is far away? So all of these are causes of grief. Nobody likes sickness. Nobody likes mental problems. And if we have friends, if we are distant from friends or relatives, then we feel sad. So these are causes of grief. Of course, these are lesser causes, and we'll see later on, but nevertheless, these are also causes of grief. And this indicates that actually the condition should be the opposite of this on earth. That is, there should be no sickness. There should be no mental anxiety. There should be no separation of family members and friends. That's the ideal condition. So therefore, in the purport, Prabhupada talks about how in this age, people are separated from their family members. Okay? Husband and wife are separated, or children are separated from parents. This was probably not so common, maybe even 100 years ago. But as the society changes and modernizes, we see that this is taking place everywhere in the world. It is very common for both members of the family to work. So we have a husband working and a wife working, and they never see each other, and they never see the children. Or sometimes they have to travel so far away, which is very common. People are traveling 1 hour, 2 hours a day to go to work and come back from work. So therefore they come back late at night and they get up early in the morning like this. And this is quite common in many parts of the world now. So in this way the family is broken up. And of course the other thing is that the children never see the parents anymore. And of course then another point is that the children leave the house. They don't stay in the house later on. They leave the house when they're 18 years old or 20 years old, and then they hardly ever see the parents anymore. And so the parents are alone. So this is you could say, the breakup of the household unit. In the Vedic system, or the Varnashram system, the family was the basic union, of the basic unit of happiness and success. So there's emphasis upon family life and the relationships between husband, wife, and children. And if that is strong, then the society is strong. And when that is weak, society is weak. And we see in Bhagavad Gita also, in relation to the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna's talking about the killing of the people. It's not so much the killing itself, but then the women are left without husbands. And then the result of that is they have to find a new husband. And then we have mixtures of varnas and things like that taking place, where the people are not so compatible anymore. And then ultimately we have a breakup of the family unit. And this will cause big problems. So this is, of course, sounds a little bit maybe castish or whatever from one point of view. But the principle, of course, is that if the families are broken up, then the children generally become unproductive, and consequently the whole society becomes unproductive. Nobody wants to work, nobody wants to do anything, or nobody can work even. Therefore they're supported by the society and given checks to just keep them bare subsistence or whatever, and they avoid working like this. So we get all the people like that, whereas we'll see in the ideal system, everybody's supposed to work. And they have to support their family. And therefore they have occupations, and you fit into your occupation and you just do your work without question. You have a family and you support your family. So modern world's opposite. There's no family, no one to support, no obligation to anyone. Everybody themselves, and nobody wants to work. So that is the result of the broken family. This is a cause, a big problem in modern society. Of course, it's not the ultimate problem, but it's one of the problems of society. And that is brought out here by saying that you're grieving because your relatives and friends are far away. There's no family anymore. Everyone is lonely. So that is one situation in the modern world, or in Kali Yuga. And then the other, of course, is the sickness. external sickness and internal sickness. These are also physical things, and the devotee is taught not to be too attached to the material body, but nevertheless, we do have a body and we have to take care of our body also, even for spiritual life. But the materialist is even more attached to his body because he thinks he's his body. So if his body is ailing, or is sick, or if he loses a limb, or whatever, then they get very perplexed by the whole situation, very disturbed by any problem to them. Creates a big problem. So in the ideal system, then there should be minimum of sickness. Of course, we cannot avoid this because it's the nature of the material body to get sick and die. But if you have good karma, you get less sickness. You get more bad karma due to previous sinful activities, then you get more sickness. So the people of Kali Yuga are generally more sinful. Therefore they have more bad karma. And therefore they're going to get more sickness. They're going to have shorter lifespans. They're going to have more accidents. They're going to have more disasters. So this is the nature of the law of karma. And if you don't have that sinful activity, then you have a more peaceful life. So therefore we can expect on the physical level of health and sickness that the people of Kali Yuga will have to suffer more. This is ironical in one sense because modern civilization prides itself on medical discoveries and things to keep you healthy. But in spite of that, then we find that people are getting sicker and sicker. So no matter how much we try to make everybody healthy, something comes and then we get sicker again. And can't solve the problem. So ultimately the cause is because of all the sinful activity that we have to suffer more. And we cannot prevent it by medicine. And medicines may cause more problems. So sickness is a big problem for people in this world, and a big concern. Because people are attached to their material bodies. The more subtle cause, of course, is the antaradyam, the internal sickness, mental problems. Even in modern medicine, they say that a lot of the problems arise because of internal problems, that is, stress and anxieties and fears and whatever. So this will cause eventually external sicknesses, physical problems, like heart disease and whatever. So the mind and the body are very intimately related together. And we can never think that they're separate things. Right? And the mind's, in Vedic science, the mind is also a material element. It's not an abstraction, it is a thing. And for the jiva, it's very important because this subtle body with the mind in it is more or less eternal. It goes along with the soul birth after birth. Your body is temporary, it will die, but your mind will not die. It will continue with all of its previous experiences and take you into a next body, and then you're stuck with that mind again, and then next lifetime, and next lifetime, and next lifetime, you're stuck with that mind with all of its karmas and problems and impressions and desires and hatreds and fears and whatever. So the mind is, one says, a big problem because it is carrying a whole burden of previous experience with us. Often these experiences are not good experiences either. So we get a lot of anxieties because of that. Plus, because it is Kali Yuga, and because people are doing more sinful activity, the material situation is worse, and therefore more anxieties again, simply because of the material situation. Everybody has to struggle more just to maintain themselves. So they're getting great anxiety for that. So we see that people have to work 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, or whatever. Of course, they try to relax people and regulate the hours, I think, in civilized countries to 6 hours or 8 hours or whatever, but then added onto that 2 hours of traveling one way, 2 hours traveling the other way, it starts to add up. So ultimately there's not much time except to work and sleep. Which is not natural for the human life. It's not natural to the human being to do that. So therefore, we're going to get physical effects, we're going to get mental effects from that. And the two will reinforce and cause more problems for us. Okay? So the more tension and stress we have, then the more sickness we get. The more sickness we get, then the more mental problem we get. Like this, so it's increasing our problems. So in other words, the situation is not good, either mentally or physically. We talk about the adhyatmic and adhibautic problems we have. Adhyatmic is the mental aspect of it, and the adhibautic is the physical aspect of it. So we have our sicknesses and everything, but then we get the mental aspect also. Both are big problems and cause for lamentation or distress or whatever. So here the bull Dharma is asking, do you have mental anxiety, or do you have physical problems, or do you have social problems because there's nobody around you and all your family members have gone away? So a very nice description of the modern world. And in spite of the fact that we are trying to advance in civilization by giving more material amenities and higher standards of living, we can't solve these problems. So we see even the most advanced countries are undergoing the worst suffering now. They're getting the most deaths from the coronavirus, and they can't do anything about it. There's no relief from it, no vaccine to help them out. Okay? So this is it's a typical example of the world. Now, I mentioned the other day that the earth is healthy when Dharma is intact. Next verse talks about the 3 legs of Dharma disappearing. So that's ultimately why the cow is lamenting, because there's no more Dharma left. And as a result of that, then we get all these other problems happening. Yeah? So the other things are secondary aspects of the problems on earth, because Dharma is no longer existent, because human beings are more sinful, and therefore they get these problems. So for us, this is a natural conclusion. More sinful activities, less Dharma, more karma, then more suffering. Of course, it's the nature of Kali Yuga that there will be more sinful activities, which means more bad karma, etc. More suffering is the result of that. So the suffering will take the form of, here in this example, the form of suffering takes that the earth does not produce anything. Ultimately, the earth will stop functioning for the human being. We'll have a struggle for food, we'll have a struggle for water, we have a struggle for everything as a result of this. So this is worse than the other aspects of sinful activity, etc., where we get physical sickness or mental problems. Then ultimately we don't have any food, can't even subsist. What to speak of getting a sickness or a mental problem? We don't even have food to live. Okay. So the solution, according to the Bhagavatam, is restoration of Dharma. At least have some level of conduct for the human being that everybody has to follow in terms of principles, avoiding sinful activities. Then we get a solution to the problem. Otherwise, it'll go on like this forever. And science can try, and sociologists and others and politicians can try to solve the problem in various ways. Some will say, okay, let's get another vaccine. Of course, then the viruses get a little more clever, and they make a new virus, mutate to a new virus that you cannot, cure immediately. By the time you get the new cure, then the virus has gone into a new form again. So eventually, that's what may happen. That we just get virus after virus after virus, and everybody's helpless. So then what do? Then we have to isolate ourselves. Everybody has to sit in their house and do nothing all day long. But then that's the society. You cannot operate like that, because you need production, you need work, you have economies of countries. But what are you going to do? So then the whole economy crashes as a result. And then we have the whole countries falling apart because of that. So, and on the other hand, the solution is very simple. Nobody wants to face that solution, so therefore we can try one solution. We can try political solutions, we can try medical solutions, whatever, financial solutions. We get money from somewhere, or print more money and give people money, whatever. We can try all sorts of things, but unless we face the basic problem of how we interact with each other and how we interact with the earth, then we'll not solve the problem. Again, it's going to happen in a different way. So that is the analysis given here in the Bhagavatam, quite a pertinent example for us in our particular situation now. Of course, it's always been there. We see every year new problems come up in this material world, and this will not be the last of them also. But this is actually the solution to it. I mentioned here that we have to restore Dharma to its four legs, and at least that minimum principle is followed, which does not cost money. It just requires controlling the senses. If people are willing to control the senses, then all this can stop, all the problems stop. If we're not willing, then it will continue, and people will suffer more. It is difficult to enforce control of the senses. How you can, the government can say, okay, stop this, people will start, rebelling. No more liquor, they'll revolt or something, or no more meat, they'll revolt because of that, if you try to enforce it. So it's a difficult situation, so it does require education, etc. But as I mentioned the other day, the Dharma can actually not function independently. It has to go along with spiritual development. And if people understand that we're not the body and we do have a higher goal and we do have a higher enjoyment other than sense gratification, then they'll be willing to give up or control their senses to some degree at least, and minimize. They may not be able to do it perfectly, but they can minimize their sinful activities. So that's the hope, and we can contribute to that sort of solution by propagating chanting of the holy name. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Mark. Just a question that comes to my mind is that it looks like we have a solution to all the problems, but suppose the government said, well, okay, you are in charge, can we do it?
Well, we are not kshatriyas, we are not government, we are not army, whatever. We're more of the Brahminical aspect. So we can give counsel to the government on what to do and how to do it. In other words, you minimize your sinful activities, restrict the drinking and the meat eating and all that. May not be able to eliminate it, like in India, even though the Prime Minister is vegetarian, he can't eliminate it completely, but he can, limit it to some degree, like that. So, and it's gradual. And eventually maybe they can get more and more control over all these things. And as there's more control over the sinful activities and more control over the killing of the animals, etc., then we can begin to change the society to some degree. It's not an immediate solution, but it's gradual. But at least we have one type of solution that has a scriptural basis, and it will actually work because it's common sense also. Yeah, we can analyze the whole world and all the problems are coming about because people have no sense control. Somebody wants to mine more, somebody wants to take more oil, somebody wants to cut down more trees, and it's all because somebody wants to make more money. So people have to learn to control that, and of course individuals may not want to, but if the people understand this is what's wrong, and they can force everybody to follow the rules also. Maybe that's the democracy of the modern world. We can educate the people in general to refuse to accept the lower standards and have higher standards also, if they can agree that they're going to control their senses to some degree. If they say that's the only solution, maybe they can agree. But anyway, the government themselves, of course, it's also temporary because it's all democracy, and every few years they get thrown out of power. So actually it depends on the people, not so much the government but the people. If people are educated and think properly, then they could probably elect better people to govern. People who are less corrupt and not self-interested.
Thank you.
In terms of advising people to not engage in illicit activities like meat eating and intoxication, these things, from my own experience, when I give this advice to friends or family, it's very easy for them to put a bit of a wall into kind of a bit of friction to be created. So just with one or two people, I'm kind of, if you can't give up your illicit activities, you can just do an offering. You can offer them to God before you engage in them. I know that probably seems a bit contrary to this happy offering.
A sinful activity, you can't offer a sinful activity.
But my thought is maybe over time that will just create the conscious, like develop the consciousness to kind of purify the activity, and obviously not overnight, but maybe over time to bring God into their lives more, and maybe make them see kind of realization about the activity.
Well, even to get them to offer anything requires some sort of faith. But if they don't have that faith, then they won't do that either. So if they're at a very low level, all you can do is expose them without actually preaching and not expecting an immediate result. So you can give them prasadam or let them hear kirtan or something like that. Less, effortless type of activity where you're not imposing yourself on them. And by that exposure, then eventually they begin to change a little bit. And then they can hear something and follow something a little higher.
Say they do have faith, for example, can it work to be like, okay, I'm eating this meat or I'm engaging in this intoxication, but just to say a prayer beforehand, okay, may this act eventually, because I know specific people that don't necessarily want to engage in these things, there's a certain condition to it, they don't know a way out. So could you just say, maybe this intoxication, give you the realization.
Well, I suppose maybe a better prayer would be that may I be able to give this up at some point in time. That I know it's wrong, but I'm still addicted to it. Just pray that at some time I'll have the strength to be able to, give it up and take better diet or better take care of my body and mind better. They can pray like that at least. Respect their body and their mind even. Do everything to preserve it for a higher purpose. At least they can have a prayer like that. And that'll encourage them to give up bad habits at least.
Thank you. Namaskar, Maharaj. I was reading an article a few years ago. United Nations produced a paper called Happiness Index of all countries on our globe. And I was consciously noticing that among all the 200 countries, the best 10 countries, where so-called economic development and technological advancement, so-called social orders, they were the lowest in the rank of the happiness index, in spite of the so-called affluent living and facilities. And the top level was like small, economically disadvantaged countries like Bangladesh.
They're happier.
And you're looking at the whole analysis, social, psychological, partnership. Partnership was the last, because partnership is another illusion, of course, because the happiness index, the health and contentment, family orientation, and so especially in the United States, in the European countries, they're right in 60, 70th on the list. Very, very low rank.
Surprisingly.
Most disease, most anxiety, unrest, dissatisfaction. So that shows that material advancement is not equate with happiness.
And the more they get, the more they want. They get more dissatisfied because they want more.
And the other thing that I said in the class is the more simple activities. In the world we have the facility, the wealth, the gold, whatever, where Kali actually takes hold of it. Which gives them that more simple activities.
More people can act more irresponsibly.
I'm just wondering, they say, they talk about how Krishna consciousness moves kind very heavy beliefs about that.
Well, difficult to make predictions. We see that many movements in the world, they unexpectedly may grow. Who expected Christianity to grow like it grew? Various circumstances, politically and socially and whatever, how it grew to be the major religion of the world. So it's a little bit unexpected. But for us, of course, we do have some predictions in Scripture, like the Brahma-Vivarta Purana that says that, doesn't say specifically, Krishna consciousness, but at least Dharma and some aspect of following religious principles will grow for 5,000 years after 5,000 years of Krishna's departure. For 10,000 years or so after that, then there'll be some sort of improvement in the situation in terms of following Scripture, etc. So hopefully that will take place. How it's going to take place, I think only because we can educate people on some level that we get at least a certain small percentage. This is enough to influence everybody else to, follow something. And it's inexplicable once. That's just all the mercy of the Supreme Lord, so we can't really predict, but by the will of the Lord, anything can happen. Okay. Hare Krishna.